Thought it'd be nice to do a video on how to start your own homestead. So as you can see, we've got our chickens in the back. These are actually meat birds that we're going to be harvesting soon. We've got a nice garden over there. We've got our goats. Maybe you can see them out there roaming around. And this is not only our first year, but our first few months of homesteading. We moved here in May. This is my third property that I've stewarded. Ajani's second, and I've learned a lot. And I think there's a lot of videos, I'm sure great videos out there about how to start a homestead that are more practical, that may be very, very helpful. I'm going to focus this video on a bit more, I was going to say like philosophical or kind of energetic, because there's plenty of people that have so much information about how to physically, okay, here's how to raise chickens, here's how to grow food, and here's how to do this. And, I like to share that stuff too, but there's a few things that don't often get spoken about in the homestead. I hear people all the time, they're like, I just want to get some land. They come over here, they're like, this is the dream. You guys are literally living the dream. I just want to have some land. I just want to have, a couple of acres, get some goats, chickens. And it seems exciting. And in our world, we very much romanticize the idea of getting some land and settling down and sitting back and cooking food and growing food. But the truth is, it's a lot of freaking work. So first off, if you're somebody who's feeling a call to it, beautiful, definitely explore that. And know that just by default, it's not like some easier, better life. I'm not here to say, oh, homesteading's the way to go, or the world's going to shit and we have to grow our own food. That's just not how I see it. That's not how I do it. I'm looking over there, I'm seeing somebody laying down. There's always something going on. Oh, okay, it's just some rocks. It look like the goat like laying on the ground. So the reason that I like to talk about this kind of stuff and sort of get more specific about homesteading needs and homesteading understandings is that if you are going into homesteading first off out of fear, you're worried that the world is crazy, it's going to all hell, and you don't know what to do, and you just figure growing food is the only way to go. I get it. There's crazy stuff going down, and I hear friends talking about it all the time. I'm going to sit in the garden here. Look at that cherry, look at that beautiful cherry tree, squash. I get it. It's a wild world out there. But to me, trying to create from fear, trying to do this out of fear is only going to breed more fear. You're going to make decisions out of fear. You're going to energetically put more fear into the world. And I'm not saying, you're bypassing it, but the more we create from fear, the more that fear is the foundation of what we're doing. So I'm not saying that, the things that I do, if things did happen in the world, it would just happen so that I'd be more prepared than a lot of people. I could grow my own food, I can cook things, I can, tend to land and all that stuff. But I'm not doing it for those reasons. I'm not specifically worried. And some people that might work, and there's a lot of people out there that are doing it like that. But that's just my principle. And, we teach homesteading classes. We have a series coming up. We have 3 classes coming up in August, and we have a big homesteading series, a 3-month thing, August 18th. And that's, like, to me, the foundation of it. If you're going to come with us, do what you need to do, but also recognize that for me, it's not about, I'm not doing this because there's some kind of fear out there. So once you understand that, then the next phase is realizing that your ideals for homesteading might not be the reality. I'll give you one example, and I'll give you a few examples, but one, we got goats because we wanted to have goat milk. I thought, well, we already have eggs and chickens, and we have meat from chickens and rabbits, and we have the manure from them, but how cool would it be to have our own milk? And I can make cheese, and that would be the most awesome thing. So we got goats. But the truth is, with goats, unless you buy goats that are already like milking, it can be a year before you actually get any milk. So that means we have a year with our goats before we actually get the thing that we, the initial reason that we got the goats. Now, here's the beauty of that. We've developed this really deep relationship with the goats to the point where I'm like, yeah, milk would be great, but that's like secondary to having goats in the property. And even the, manure, and it's all secondary to the companionship of the goats, to being outside more and spending time with them. And they're hilarious and silly, and they're like dogs, but they don't bark, and they're just silly. So one example, that my expectation became different. I'm still excited to get milk, and I hope that we do. And it's like, oh, what if I had to like live this year of like, well, what if we don't have milk? And what does that mean? I've had our goats for 5 months, and they've been amazing. And things are going to come up and challenges. However, that's part of being on a homestead. You're constantly learning and growing and fixing problems, creative solutions to things. And for me, it's like being resourceful. We don't have a lot of financial money and that kind of thing, and so we're finding free stuff on Craigslist, and we're getting stuff donated, and we're trading, and we're buying stuff secondhand and all that stuff. And I enjoy that. It keeps us more creative. So another thing, the homestead thing that a lot of people don't talk about, is that your ideal for a homestead, maybe it's your own property, and maybe you do save up, and you're like, in 5 years I'm going to work, and 5 years I'm going to save up and buy my own land. Great. But that's a long ways away, right? Or whatever number you have, or however long you think it might take. What can you start doing now to feel more of a connection with that? Maybe you're learning how to forage. When I was living in Brooklyn, I didn't even realize till like many, many years later that my first foray into homesteading was living in Brooklyn in a city. And then I would go to Prospect Park and I would forage, and I would collect wild medicines and herbs and berries and things like that. And then when I got into homesteading, I'm like, oh, that I actually have this skill, that I've been doing for almost 15 years. And it feels invaluable to me to have that. But if I was thinking, oh, well, I can't have a homestead until I move out of New York City or da-da-da, maybe I wouldn't have had that experience. But instead I was just following my excitement. But another big piece that I think does screw people up is if you're getting into a homestead, you see the corn back there, you don't necessarily need to even have the land. Maybe you never have or own or rent land. Maybe there's somebody in town that has an amazing homestead or a farm, and you get to work there for them, or you get to volunteer, whatever it might be. Because if we're all so consumed by, I need to have my own space and be self-sufficient, we might never get what we actually desire. To me, self-sufficiency is a lie. It's this idea that we can do it on our own, make it on our own. It's all self. But the self is an illusion, right? We're all connected. Everything plays a role. Everybody plays a role, and we all have our own, desires and things, and that's great. But to me, like when I look at homesteading, this isn't just my homestead. We have friends that I feel that come over, and I feel like they have a sense of ownership because they get to be part of this. And I might have the vision, and Naja might have the vision, and we might be working towards something and inspiring and teaching, but it's so much bigger than us. Not to mention, like, how can it be self when all these plants, or all these living beings are here, and they're connecting us to everything, right? If I'm so stuck on the individualized ideal, I see this all the time where people end up like in the middle of nowhere, and they're stressed, and they're like, oh, I bought 100 acres, and I did everything myself, but nobody's coming. I'm like, figure out what you love to do, and do it, and support other people around you, and let them support you. Because as you do that, you realize that we all have a role that we can take. Oh my God, it's so good. So fresh. Right? Goats play a role. Self-sufficiency is an illusion. And people are trying to convince you that it's real. I'm just not buying it. I'm over this idea that we can be individually. It's silly. You can go. You can do it. You can take all the money in the world and buy a big property and live in the middle of nowhere. But to me, the joy is in the experience of sharing it with other people, and being connected. Whether it's, I personally love to teach, so I like to have people over and make videos to show people what's possible. And that's why I want to remind you that homesteading is a mindset. It's not a place, it's not a destination. We never arrive at some destination where all of a sudden we're growing all our own food and making all our own stuff, and then that's it. Maybe that was the case, and that was the only option many, many years ago. But at this point, things are different. And I'm not saying you can't go do that, but recognize that that's the illusion that we're kind of sold on, as though that's the way to go. And I'm just not buying it. So no matter what access point you feel, or what makes sense to you, try to recognize that homesteading is a mindset, and that if you create that within yourself, you can create a space within your own reality where you can be more connected to nature, start learning how to make things, how to grow things, how to fix things. One day you'll look back and be like, wow, that's crazy. Do you realize what you've done?